Welcome to Airtime with the Airport Explorers Club, brought to you by the Greater Toronto Airports Authority and Toronto Pearson Airport.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Airport Explorers Club. My name is Deshon, and today our guest is Kevin. Kevin, can you tell us what you do at the airport?
Hi, Deshon. Yeah, I can. I am an air traffic controller, and I work in the tower right in the middle of the airport.
That's cool. What is Nav Canada?
Well, Nav Canada is the company that I work for. You could think about it as kind of like the FAA, if some of you guys know what the FAA is in the States. Up here in Canada, we have a company called Nav Canada, which is a not-for-profit company that runs our air navigation system for all of Canada. So basically, we take care of all the planes that are in the air and all the planes that are at the airports when it comes to controlling them and keeping them separated.
That's cool. Do you like your job?
Well, I can't say that I like it, but I'll tell you that I love it. It is the best job in the world. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. Every time I go to work, it's different. And it's always a challenge. So that's what I really like about it. So I do really like my job. I love it.
Has anything weird ever happened at your job?
Something weird at my job. That's a really interesting question because there's always sort of different weird things that happen. But one thing that does come to mind is when it gets really, really windy at the airport, believe it or not, the place that I work in, which is the tower, which is about 220 feet off the ground, actually feels like a boat. So when it's super windy, we're in the tower and it actually sways a good 6 inches to a foot, depending on how much wind there is. So it's I would say that is probably one of the weirdest things that has happened to me.
Weird. That's very weird. Were you always interested in airports and airplanes when you were a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, I was interested in lots of things. As I grew a little bit older, I was really fascinated with airplanes. And what I wanted to do was actually be a pilot initially. And where I was living, there wasn't a lot of pilot schools or ways of becoming a pilot. So I looked into different things in what I could do to get involved in aviation. And I learned about air traffic control from a friend of ours, and I was actually allowed to go up into the operation and see what it's all about. So that's what really got me interested in it. I wanted to be a pilot, and then somebody else mentioned air traffic control, and I looked into it, and it really interested me.
What is it like inside the control tower?
Well, it can be a different place on different days. Sometimes it could be very busy. Sometimes it can be pretty quiet. I think the thing that a lot of people think that happens in a control tower is lots of, fast talking and people yelling at each other and sort of craziness, but it's a pretty calm place. So even when we're super busy, we're pretty calm at the same time. We just might talk a little bit quicker. So it's actually a pretty calm environment and pretty quiet at times because we have our headsets on and we don't speak out loud very often, and we coordinate mostly through computers now. So it's kind of nice.
Okay, I have a funny question for you. If it's busy inside the control tower, how do you take a break to use the washroom?
Now that's a really interesting question. We actually don't have a washroom upstairs in the tower. So what we need to do is we actually need to get relieved by another controller. So what happens is most of the time, we always have a backup controller. So when I'm working, I always have somebody who's downstairs waiting for me on a break. And what happens is we work about an hour in position because that's about a good amount of time so that we can keep our focus and keep our concentration on everything. And then what'll happen is when that hour is done, that person will come up, and what we do is we do a position handoff. And what I'll do is I'll tell the story of what's happening right now in terms of my traffic. So who's in the air, who's on the ground, who's moving where, and then I will hand it off to him, and then I'll go downstairs into our washroom and take care of our business down there.
Okay. Do you remember certain pilots when you're talking to them on the radio?
That's a really good question. I do. I remember probably 70 to 80% of the voices that I hear. So I recognize a lot of voices, but one of the things that, if you could say that I don't love about my job, is that I actually don't get to see the faces of all the pilots I talk to every single day, the hundreds of thousands of transmissions and conversations that we have. So I do remember the pilots by their voices, but I really do wish I could see their faces. I've only met a few of them, so that's one thing that I wish I could do.
Okay. Is being an air traffic controller like playing a video game?
Is it being a video game? Yes, you know what? I would say it is. It is a big video game because you are constantly moving traffic around. You're manipulating computers. You're talking to people, telling them where to go, and making sure that they're always separated from each other. So, yeah, I would say it is like a big video game. But the one thing that you always have to remember is there's lots of people on the airplane. So I can treat it like a video game, but I also remember that I always work like my mom's flying on every single plane. So because it's a lot of responsibility.
Wow. How did you learn to be an air traffic controller?
I learned to be an air traffic controller at a special school that's located in Cornwall. It was called the Nav Canada Training Institute, NICTI for short. And it's an air traffic school where I went and I lived there and I did simulation and took courses on how to be an air traffic controller. And the company I work for is the company that runs that school. So I was able to be employed by Nav Canada and trained by them to be an air traffic controller as well. So that's where I learned how to be controller in the school part. And then they moved me to Toronto Tower, where I actually worked with another controller on the job for a couple of years and then learned how to do it specifically in Toronto. So that's how you learn, is with another controller. It's like your teacher.
How old were you when you went to that Nav Canada school thing?
I was 26 years old when I entered Nav Canada. So I was able to work in the outside world. So I had another job before. I had went to university and decided that I didn't want to continue with the career that I was in at the time. And I met somebody who mentioned that I would be really good at air traffic control, and I decided to do that.
Okay. If you were not an air traffic controller, would there be another job that you would want to do at the airport?
Well, that one's really easy for me. Like I said before, I first got interested in being a pilot when I was much younger. So I would absolutely want to be a pilot. A pilot. That would be my number one choice, would be to be a pilot at the airport.
What advice would you give the kids who are thinking about becoming an air traffic controller?
Well, my advice to everyone out there who would want to be a controller would be to learn about it. Go online, find out what air traffic controllers do, and decide if it's something that you'd like to do. Another thing you can do as well is write the practice test. There's a practice test online that'll give you some of the insight into the testing that goes on for becoming an air traffic controller. And then the last thing would be to, once you've decided to do something, really put your mind to it and follow your dreams. And if you want to be one, you can be one.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today, Kevin. This is Deshon for the Airport Explorers Club. Over and out. Bye.
Yeah.